Good afternoon, or what is a warm, bright and sunny day. It is Sunday the 9th of April, Easter Sunday. I've got a nice hot cup of tea. I am joined by a cat who is not ours. And I have this box to continue unboxing. Now, what have I pulled out of here so far is, so the next book I want, tell you what I'm going to, here we go, the next book I'm going to pull out of here, set the box back over there, is this, which is Sins. You open your eyes and find the world broken. The past you knew washed away in blood and fire, the world all but consumed by the sins of our fathers. The song of the mother denies the dead their rest, and they howl for the communion of all flesh, the end of mankind. Slavers scour the wastelands looking for the unfortunate and unwanted. Wars of faith consume what remains of humanity's precious resources, and the cults of long-forgotten gods rise to prominence to proclaim their eldritch dominance once more. By all rights, you should close your eyes again and let the comforting darkness of Mother's song consume you. However, you and those like you are different. Against all odds, you fight back against the dying of the light. You hold on to what is that makes you human. Against the onslaught of the coming darkness, you refuse to yield, refuse to die, and choose to live. The path ahead isn't easy, but your rebirth grants you strength that few beings can match. You hold the power to drive back mankind's enemies and the power to rule, to be saviour, or to be a destroyer. Will you redeem mankind's sins, or draw us ever forever into the darkness? Only one thing is certain: your story is beginning. Okay, so this was originally published in 2017 by First Falling Leaf. It is now it's distributed, then distributed by Word Forge Games, but is now available from Nightfall Games, who are best known for publishing the Slay Industries and the Terminator role-playing game. So I have looked at the quick start for this and quite impressed by it. A decent kind of quite heavily programmed zombie encounter which showcases the rules and setup. So we open up and we do have a content warning because this is a horror role-playing game. So there we go. And then we have an overview of the game and what it's about, what you'll need, which essentially use the usual. Mostly it's 10 6-sided, usually 10 6-sided dice, typically per player, and then we've got sidebars clearly marked, plot, rules and commentary, and then inspiration, books and literature, so Dracula, Frankenstein, World War Z, Watership Down of all things, The Walking Dead of course, film and television, The Thing, 28 Days Later, Mad Max. So zombies, monsters, the apocalypse and so on, before we get into a glossary of terms which we'll use in the game. And then we have the table of contents. So I quite like that. That's sort of like, it's not telling you, okay, here's what the game is about, before we and the basics of it before we actually get into what's in the book. That's nicely setting everything up. That's a nice touch, I think. So, and we've got this kind of cartoonish sort of like artwork before the first section. And we're going to see more of that, I'm sure. This goes into the background in more detail, how it comes about, how the apocalypse comes with the fall of the Black Rain, and the coming of the Brood, the evil forces at the heart of the setting, and the burning, and so on, and the aftermath, and what's come about since. So the 5 paths that the survivors can follow if they have the strength. So we've got, sort of like different factions. We've got the Keepers, the Throne, Architects, the Circle, and the Harbingers. And then we've got a description of the world at the end. This will be followed by a map I've just seen over the page, where you have the world itself, marked with two things: brood infestation and nucleus scarring. So quite clear use of colour here to mark them both. And then we've got elements of the setting: technology, scavenging, agriculture, slavery, the rule of law. How this is different. So be warned, this is a dark and dangerous setting. And we've got things like, descriptions of New Haven, a settlement; Bright Watch, a city-state. So locations that the player characters can visit, explore, so on, cope with. And then we've got description of the various locations, what remains of, say, for example, North America. I'm just going to go through the different areas: Middle East, Russia, Africa, Asia. Just an overview. South America, Australia, even the oceans of the wild. Not yet get to Europe. So Europe must have covered that earlier. Here we go, Europe. That's actually a lengthier section. That runs to America is about just over a page and a half. Europe, about the same. So they generally get a bit more information, a bit more focus. Generally, because obviously, kind of reflects the main playing, sort of main playing basis for people are going to look at this. So next chapter, more of this artwork of this nature, and what can be found out in the world today, and some of its threats and dangers. So we've got different factions and groups here. So the mask and the mirror, and the sword, essentially, and outlooks on life, approaches to taking. So you've got the tower, the mirror, the veil, the mask, the throne, the architects, the circle, the keepers. They are, the major factions within the setting. So we've got talking about the energy, perception of the life energy that the player characters, the emissaries that they play, can detect. And then also each emissary carries within them a critical flaw and malign consciousness, which is a manifestation of their self-loathing and doubt. So you've got this duality to each player character, automatically playing them one off against each other. Which one will come to dominate the character and spell their doom is part of the telling the story. Society, the cabals, the factions. So we've already had a little look at them, and then we get on to the brood. One of the true threats to this future world, this post-apocalyptic setting, and then becoming part of the brood, the rebirth, hearing the song, and then rising as one of the creatures. So I really quite like the artwork. It's quirky, it's sharp. Yes, it's slightly cartoonish, but it kind of works. It gives its own feel to the setting. And then more of the artwork before we get on to the rules. So we're quite well into sort of explaining the setting and its nature before we get to the rules. So yeah, I mean, all of these dealing with things like handling scenes, chapters, stories, and then standard actions within them. Yep. And as I recall, it's a dice pool system using a six-sided dice, and then involving motivations and focus to bring out the strengths of the character. And then we'll still get into combat. So we've not yet got to characters and what you can play, but yeah, and then advantages. Sorry, experiences handled. We're using milestones, and then you can do things like training and fate and advancement and improvement of your characters. And then combat. So you've got even the rules for damage and so on, handling it before you get into combat. What the basics, what's needed, how to set everything up. Initiative, core actions, whether aggressive or defensive. And then we do have examples through, not as full as I would like, but they're there. So it's quite dense in text. The text is quite dense. There's quite a lot to go through. But I think, you can get a feel for it. It feels sort of, inspired by a mixture of like European game design and the World of Darkness a little bit. So you've got advanced and close combat options, maneuvers, close combat in detail, ranged combat in detail, things like fighting with 2 weapons, so it's not, you can be cinematic, a little bit cinematic as well. Explanation of the core traits, so that includes fate, the attributes, with examples of how each works, and then cunning, passion, prowess, reason, looking at all of those, and then we get into skills. So you really, by the time you've got down to, you've got different types of skills. You've got learnt skills, social skills, natural skills. By the time you've got down to dealing with things like motivations and specialties, vitality, qualities like fearless or inspiring, ride, background qualities like forbidden knowledge, powerful friends, you have some idea of what is available to you before you even start thinking about putting a character together. And then anima is essentially, you have anima, all living things have an anima pool, but it can be utilised by certain supernatural creatures like the brood and nemesis. So you've got special powers that they can fuel through anima, and which can be regenerated, and gain enhancements like increased body or increased cunning, wings, and so on. And then finally, after all of this, you get to character creation. So building a character from your concept upwards, dealing with body and mind, applying, choosing skills, specialties, rebirth, how you came to be, last steps to do, and then you've got an actual full example. So that's actually surprisingly short. The character creation section is that, and you've already, and it's that, and that includes the example. Essentially, you sometimes realise just how lengthy your character generation system is during a role-playing game. But actually, no, that's all the parts that go into the character creation. The actual rules for character creation are short. Then we've got the equipment section. So, rules for equipment, weapon qualities, heavy book, armour and armour traits, And then you've got rules for crafting in there if you want, but your character wants to be skilled at, you know, making things. And then goods, slaves, vehicles and transport, weaponry, all the goods you can imagine in the setting. Drugs and chemicals, and then you've got lists of all the equipment as well. And then emissaries. So more about sort of those that are trying to unique emissary traits and their powers, and then of course the process of rebirth creates in each emissary a sickness which is spite, but they can balance that with their creed. But spite can be lost and gained as well. It's what threatens to push them over into, you know, the worst side of the humanity. So. So you've got various different powers for your emissary, and so on, and you've got rules in here for sort of like for going through becoming an emissary and going through the awakening process, so on, to become a harbinger. And then songs. The root of an emissary is songs and arietta form the meat and bones of what an emissary can do. So these are the major abilities. So it's quite powerful once your emissary sort of grows and so on. And there's a sense of sort of like, you know, the arietta and the joy. The songs bring joy where the brood won't. So there are different powers in here associated with those. Flip forward a bit, so we get into details of the brood as well. And they have their own unique bloodspawn traits. And then you've got the GM's toolkit at the end. Rules for, you know, guidance there for handling advancement with player characters, and creating advanced characters quickly. You know, so if one dies, you've got to have a character replacement in there. Bloodspawn behaviour during play, how to role play and present them as the threat. And then basically hollow behaviour, basically the weaknesses within each emissary. Judgments on death and rebirth, handling those in the game because there is the distinct possibility. Just general advice on running stories, planning, interactions, description, handling aspects of the rules, and running combat. And then useful things like rules for diseases and the like, convenient information, and then a rogues gallery of various threats, so ordinary humans, animals, sadly not illustrated, which is a bit of a pity, and then bloodspawn. So various types. And then a more detailed description. So we've got, you know, this is of the East Coast. So this is an area which you can explore in game, especially after playing the quick start. So you've got a history, how it came to be, and then the situation of what it is like in the new age. And the factions found dominating the area. Figures of note and their history. So yeah, going through the various factions, before we get into a different guide for the East Coast today, going, working down from Maine through New Hampshire and Vermont for Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York State, all the way down through Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia and Florida. So that's quite a net. It's covering the whole of the eastern seaboard. Among letters is handouts and sort of like information in-game that player characters might come across. Several of those actually sort of like add a surprisingly different feel and tone to the game, because of the colour change. And then then we get to the index. So that is Sins. Term afterward by the author. This is Sins, available from Nightfall Games. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, please do click on the like button down below. And of course, if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you see me out here with a box containing a book or game which I'll unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. And a cat who is not ours, then please do hit the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. Be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.